And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, January 31st. Final day of January. We're off to February tomorrow for a day off as well. So I won't even care that it's February tomorrow. 6-game slate. I'm Josh Engleman. You guys don't know this one yet. I'm joined by Danny Burke. So making the debut on the Deeper Dive, the best show in the industry. There's no other place to make a better debut than right here, right now, 5 p.m. Eastern time on the Stokastic YouTube channel. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. What's going on, man? Welcome.
Appreciate you having me on, Josh. Yeah, that's what they told me. They said, if you're going to start with one show, it's got to be the Deeper Dive with Josh Engleman. So said, hey, twist my arm. I'll hop on and see if we can't have a good time tonight.
It is the gold standard of DFS shows. I got to be honest. It has existed for a very long time. Technically speaking, this show does predate me. We brought this one in on the FanVice acquisition a while back, but I have tried to make this bad boy my own over the past few years as much as I can. And that's why it does awesome, because it's great. And we're going to break down some basketball. We get not a lot of good basketball today. Charlotte plays, they stink. Dallas, Detroit is not exactly the game you want it to be. Philly stinks. Toronto stinks. Chicago stinks. The Pelicans stink. But we get Giannis versus Wemby, so at least we have something to hang our hat on today.
Yeah, at least one decent game, right? I mean, you get the international stars bumping up against each other, see who can come over on top. And look, I was listening to you a little bit earlier today, and just from what it seems like from everybody across the DFS board, I mean, going to be a big night for Giannis. So excited to get into that game. But yeah, like you said, slim pickings otherwise, which sometimes makes it for an intriguing slate to dive through. But yeah, my Bulls, for anybody, obviously a lot of people don't know me out there. I am a Chicago guy, as you can't tell from the flag back there. And yeah, seldom have I been able to watch a Bulls game, even because they put it on a different network, so they pretty much screwed their entire audience. But it's not the worst thing, considering I get to avoid watching the dreadfulness that is the Chicago Bulls, of mediocrity that is just the same year in and year out. So I guess it's not the worst thing at the end of the day, Josh.
Well, at least things are getting better. No, actually, they're only going to get worse and worse. It's not looking up in Chicago. Maybe they can get a bunch of assets. They can trade off all of the slop. And 3 years from now, they can start fresh with a completely new team. Maybe.
The issue is they've been saying that for the past 3 years and every year before that. So, yeah, it's purgatory being a Bulls fan. But hey, shout out to Jerry Reinsdorf, doing it with the White Sox, doing it with the Bulls. You got to respect the consistency, I suppose.
To be fair, you guys did sell your souls for 6 titles in the 90s. So there are a bit of growing. It takes a little bit to get back to it. It did go pretty well. You had this Michael Jordan guy. I don't know if you heard of him. Had a pretty illustrious career. Ended up being the second best player ever. Where you at, Chad?
Oh, that's how we're going to start this show now. Okay. Fair enough. Look, hey, I'm not ready to get into the LeBron Jordan debate here, but like we said, I am ready to get into some of this average, below average matchup in the association tonight. So excited to hear what you got to say too, my man.
I assume that you don't want to get into that debate because there is no debate, that it is just simply LeBron James, and all of the debate just stops at that moment. But we'll save that for a different day, because we have to talk about the Clippers and the Charlotte Hornets, just what everybody wants. Clippers, almost 2 touchdown favorites, 13 points in Charlotte, 208.5 total. This is the slowest pace game that I have on the slate. It is by far the lowest total. We have 4 games in the 230s. Dallas, Detroit is just shy of it at 228. This one sub 210. And for the most part, we see that in the ownership. Only Kevin Porter Jr. got to 10% ownership on the DraftKings side, and he hit it on the number. And he has not exactly been playing consistent minutes as of late. On the FanDuel end, Derek Jones Jr. and Kawhi both got just north of 10. But I don't see much for this Clippers team at all. 2% ownership to Norm Powell, 2% ownership to James Harden. It is all very minimal on this Clippers side. I have a couple random shares of Zubats, a couple random shares of Derek Jones, and then unfortunately for me, something that I do not want, I am matching the field on KPJ When you look at the Clippers today, do you see anybody that stands out? Do you have anybody that you're looking at like, well, they are playing Charlotte, maybe this goes well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you on KPJ here. I mean, look, his usage rate's not too bad, 28%, right? And same with his assist percentage as well. And you kind of look at this spot for the Clippers with them being such a big favorite. And if you think that that projection is going to fall in line, the betting market is set accordingly, then yeah, maybe that could prop up somebody like a Kevin Porter Jr., who could be, propped up nicely from James Harden, who I think makes an intriguing case in this spot, Josh. But again, based on his price, at DraftKings 9,300. Yes, he leads the team in usage, great assist percentage as well. And he's been doing really, really spectacular the past couple of weeks and obviously all throughout this season. But the price is a bit steep. And what really worries me is the slower pace here, is the fact that they're such a big favorite. And if this game just gets blown out of proportion, well, not only prior to potentially being sat out early, will James Harden maybe just take his foot off the pedal and somebody else can step up. So that's why I don't mind an acquisition here in a lot of lineups like a KPJ. Again, I'm getting him at about 15%. And it looks like the projections like him as well in terms of optimal lineup. And it's kind of been the same way the entire day. So yeah, KPJ getting a lot of him throughout the Clippers. Zubats, I think, makes an interesting case as well. A lot of intriguing spots here for the center position. And he's really low owned, about projected 30 minutes or so. In Charlotte, we know how horrid they are defensively. So again, I think Zubats is worth putting in a solid amount of your lineups, not going too crazy with him because, again, same thing could be applied with it being such a big favorite. But yeah, Zubats and then KPJ would probably be the two main characters I would look at. Josh, just a heads up, I am having trouble hearing you right now. So if you can hear me, great. But I am struggling to hear you on the other side. So my apologies. Just want to make that known.
Josh, I think your mic is physically muted. I cannot hear you, but I can hear Danny.
I've been muted the whole time.
There we go. Okay, I thought that was on my side for a second.
The weird part is I didn't see chat say that it was me until I started explaining what was happening. So my dog walked out and I needed him to get back from the top of the steps because he's got a cone on and he looks all stupid. So I needed him to come back in here so he didn't do anything. And apparently I never unmuted. But the way that you said it made me think that you were having like a technical issue.
That's what I thought it was as well. I was like, all right, maybe it's
issue.
Yeah, I was like, maybe it's me, and I don't want him to just throw it to me, and then I don't say anything. So, all right, rough start for the first show here, but hey, we'll bounce back.
Was 100% me. I'm supposed to be the pro in this situation. I'm stepping in here like I've never talked on a microphone before. I explained everything. I even gave you a suggestion for how to fix the audio. I was like, oh, just mute StreamYard. Unmute the other tab. Maybe that'll work. So anyway, I was talking about centers and how the center position is loaded today and why I don't think I'll get to as much Zoo, because you've got guys like Wemby, Giannis, Jokic, Aaron Gordon, Diabate on the other side, Paul Reed in Detroit as a backup center at the flat 3K. So I'm having trouble getting to more of Zubats, but I do want to get to more of Zubats because to me, in this matchup, he looks awesome. Charlotte hasn't been able to be good against a center somehow in like 10 years. And it's through no matter what clientele they bring in. Somehow centers just always beat these guys. So I like the shout out for Zoo. Unfortunately, I agree with you on Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah,
Man.
I know. It's just it doesn't feel right, but man, I mean, sometimes you gotta dig a little bit deeper in this type of game, being such a big favorite are the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard, obviously someone who's not going to be making my lineup, but I'm curious your thoughts here on just the impact in general that he's going to bring in terms of the defensive pedigree that he brings with the Hornets. And on the other side, obviously Bridges with a lot of injured players. He's picking up a lot of usage, picking up a lot of action in general. But with Leonard, if he's going to get a decent amount of minutes, I mean, does that hinder a guy like Bridges in your estimation?
A little bit. I think more than anything for the Bridges side is just his price. 8,500 for him is pretty healthy. Like that is the upper max of what you could expect out of him. Now, obviously, no LaMelo, no Brandon Miller, no Mark Williams. Like they're missing bodies, but you need to run out perfect for him. I have his projection around 37 fantasy points. I have his goal score for today at his salary at 48. That creates a situation where you need like a really big outlier for Bridges. So to me, I'm going to have a lot of trouble getting to him. Like I said, I don't have much on the Clippers side. I think we should probably just touch on the guy that is pulling the most ownership here, and it's not even close. It is Moussa Diabate. Center only, 4,200 on DraftKings, 4,600 on FanDuel. He's about 30% owned on the DraftKings side. The expectation is basically Taj Gibson starts. He plays like the first quarter and the third quarter, maybe some other random rotation, and then Moussa Diabate soaks up the bulk of the rest of the time. He's a fine per minute guy, but they just don't have other bodies that are centers. So some combination of those two dudes are going to be putting up a lot of minutes. I'm expecting it to be Diabate. He grades out as pretty clearly the best option for me in this entire game, but I do happen to be a little bit under the field. So while the field is at 30%, I only have 20. What do you see here for Charlotte?
Yeah, with Diabate, I mean, he's been going crazy with the projections all day, just running it and looking what's been available at Stokastic. And I get it, right? Like you said, I mean, this Hornets team is incredibly thin. And over his last 3 games, he's been getting a fantasy point per minute. The price is incredibly appealing, completely understood on all fronts. Projected 30 minutes here, and the ownership is just so high to where it almost makes me want to be a little contrarian here, especially with some of the other center options we have. With that being said, again, the price draws you back in the action that's needed out of him from this dwindled Hornets roster. But it's just the matchup as well against Zubac down low, I think is what kind of scares me a tad bit from going too crazy with Diabate. So I did click him down a little bit. I didn't go too nuts, but certainly not getting as much as our projections had him out if you were just going point blank with what Stochastic threw out there. I dialed him down a bit, but clearly the sights are set high on him for tonight. So I'm not completely fading him, but I just don't want to go over owned with him throughout my lineups and have a ton of exposure on someone that could just turn out to be an absolute dud in this matchup against Zubac in potentially a very low scoring affair.
Yeah, I mean, Zoo is basically one of the better defensive centers in the league. Very highly ranked in defensive EPM and defensive Darko. So not the best matchup in the world for anybody on Charlotte. Do you see anybody else for the Hornets? I really just don't have much of these guys. Random shares here or there, but it's really just Diabate and nothing else for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I'm just laughing because you just look at this lineup and it's just disgusting all throughout. I mean, I'm getting a little bit I had in my simulation of Nick Smith Jr. I mean, but very, very minimally at 5,000. I mean, maybe he's going to be in a couple lineups here and there, but yeah, outside of Diabate. And then I did dial down Bridges as well a little bit because I think it is going to be a tougher matchup against Kawhi Leonard in this Clippers front. So it's really just Diabate, and even then tuned him down a little bit, right? Big favorite here are the Clippers, like I said, in a lower scoring game. It doesn't really provide ingredients for wanting to choose a lot of players in my lineups from this game.
All righty. Well, we're going to put this one to bed. We've got better games to talk about in the near future, but I do need you guys to hit the like button. About 1,100 of you in here right now. Nope, about 1,000 of you in here right now. We should be able to get to 150 likes pretty easily because the more we get now, the easier it is later to let the Live Before Lock crew get here and see a big like number because they come up next. There's not even any intermission here. They're just going to pop onto this stream at 6 o'clock and take you all the way up until 7 for the news that's dropping for the 2 7 p.m. games. Probably around 6:50, we might start getting some of the 7:30 stuff. After Live Before Lock, we've got Live After Lock on Playback, playback.tv/Stokastic. We're technically live there right now. We'll be live there all the way through 8 o'clock. We can watch the games. You guys can watch along with us. If you have a League Pass account, you just have to link it with your login information. You'll be able to see the game the same way we are. This costs you nothing, by the way. Playback, totally free. If you don't have League Pass, we do have 20 VIP passes that we could hand out. Maybe you can grab one of those. You'll see the game. If you can't see the game, it's just like the experience you see on the screen right now. You'll see myself, you'll see Greg, and we'll be talking through everything that is happening. But come in, join us. It's the place to be if you're waiting for late news. The Dallas Mavericks are 1-point favorites in Detroit, 228 total. Dallas continues to be bit by the injury bug, and it doesn't appear to be getting any better anytime soon. Luka obviously still out. Maxi Kleber broke his foot. Decent chance he's gone till well after the All-Star break. Derek Lively out. Dwight Powell out. Dante Exum questionable, but allegedly going to be playing today. So welcome back, Exum. Unfortunately, though, it is not creating a situation where a lot of people are trying to roster Dallas Mavericks. 10% ownership to Daniel Gafford is the most on DraftKings. Everybody else is in single digits. Kyrie got to 10 on FanDuel. Gafford got to 15. PJ Washington got to 20. So FanDuel, a little bit more ownership coming in on the Dallas side than on the DraftKings end. I don't have much. A couple shares of Quentin Grimes, a couple one-off shares of Gafford and PJ Washington, but we are going to continue the theme of not having a lot of things that I'm interested in, at least on the Dallas side. When we get to Detroit, things will change.
Yeah, with Dallas, the only guy that stands out for me is Daniel Gafford. And like I said, I think the center position makes for an intriguing conversation throughout a lot of these games. As ugly as they may be, this is the one position that's really standing out with some guys who could have some solid performances. Look, his usage rate naturally has gone up with the absence of a lot of his teammates. I mean, that's inevitable, but Gafford has really been a machine as of late. And I think this is a pretty solid matchup for him against Jalen Duren, who has really been awful defensively. I mean, plus 5.6 points per 100 possessions allowed, plus 4.1% effective field goal percentage allowed on the defensive end. So Gafford needing to step up in this crucial role in a game that could be back and forth here with the narrow spread. Yeah, I think Gafford's a spot that's worth looking at for that center eligibility. And I do match him with, you know, the public perception with the ownership across the board at DraftKings, about the same exposure. But, you know, I may run this one back and tick him up a little bit as well. I think it is a viable spot for Gafford. And outside of him, Josh, really, I mean, PJ Washington's the guy who I'd maybe make a case for. But even then, my exposure is really low. It's just the fact that his usage rate is getting bumped up as well because of all of these injuries. It looks like he's had the highest usage rate in the last 5 games among the starters. So naturally, he's going to log a lot of minutes. You can make the case for PJ Washington, but all in all, Gafford would be my top choice out of Dallas.
Yep. To me, he grades out as either the best or second best option for the Mavs, just ignoring ownership, ignoring everything else. I'm having a hard time getting to someone like Kyrie at 8,800, even with the big minutes that he's been playing lately. I can't grab these Dallas pieces. These guys' prices have all come up since these injuries have happened over these past 2 weeks or so. So they're starting to normalize, and that's creating a little bit of a tricky situation and trying to get to too much more volume out of Dallas. By the way, chat, very happy to have you here today. You are you've been quite popular so far.
I actually have not been checking on the chat too much. I was a little afraid
good.
I was just going to get absolutely blasted here. So, you know, we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see, right? You know, they'll form their opinion after tonight. So that's when it really counts, depending on what I say and how much of it comes to fruition or not.
Yeah, look, you say something and somebody wins some money, you're the greatest host that has ever existed on Stokastic. The swings are that aggressive, man.
Oh, yeah.
They're that aggressive. Okay, we're going to get to the Detroit side now. This is the more interesting side to me. I have more exposure to Detroit than I do any other team on this slate. We've got 30% ownership coming into Paul Reed right now. I referenced him a little bit earlier. Flat 3K, center only. Going to be the backup center to Jalen Duren. There's no Isaiah Stewart here today. Foul trouble from Jalen Duren will get Paul Reed a couple extra minutes as well. Great per minute dude. Great value for what we have right now. Then we've got about 15% ownership to Duren and Hardaway. And we've got about 10 to Cade, Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, and Asar Thompson. Let's start with Paul Reed since he's getting the most ownership. How do you feel about taking a minimum salary backup center as one of the more popular plays of the day?
Believe it or not, I do have a fairly high exposure on Paul Reed from the simulations as well. I mean, it is what it is. Am I feeling great about it? No, not necessarily, but hey, I'm going to let it ride for a decent chunk here. Like you said, I mean, the thing you're banking on is that this game is going to be this back and forth battle, and that Duran's going to get into foul trouble at some point, and then you can get those impactful minutes from Reed and be able to juice up elsewhere throughout your lineup. But yeah, I am seeing a lot of Reed again. I feel kind of grimy there, but yeah, I mean, at 3,000 and with the valuable minutes he still might get, I understand it. I understand why it's happening. But I know from earlier this morning, and I'm very curious to hear how your thoughts have remained the same or even bolstered with Cade Cunningham throughout the entire scope of this day, because at first I was feeling okay about Cade. I mean, the price tag obviously very expensive and rightfully so here, but the more I've digested this game, the more I've thought about it, man, Cade is really becoming to me a great spend up option. And I'm curious if you still feel the same that you did on the show earlier this morning.
Oh, you set this one up perfectly for me. So we'll get to the pay up ownership later when we start talking about Giannis, because he is the most popular pay up option. Yeah. He just isn't for me. I am taking some of that Giannis ownership, and it is going directly to Cade Cunningham. He is currently in 35% of my lineup, so I am 3xing the field right now. I love the fact that the line is close. 36 minutes out of Cade makes a ton of sense. Maybe he's flying high off of making the All-Star game. He's 10,100. I think that price is sort of limiting his ownership a little bit. And to me, he's turning into a really nice ownership pivot at the top in lieu of me getting to Giannis. Now, I'm not saying this because I don't think Giannis looks good. He clearly looks good. Very obvious to me that he's the easiest pay up option to get to. But right now, I'm very light on Giannis. I'm a little lighter on Jokic. Cade is a stand for me. Victor Wembanyama is a stand for me. Jason Tatum is a stand for me. So I'm zigging while everybody else is zagging at the top side of it. So I'm really happy that you brought up Cade, because I am taking a stand on Cade Cunningham right now.
Yeah, and I'm fairly similar with you there in terms of my exposure. I'm at about 33%, so right above triple, like you said as well. So I'm with you. You convinced me this morning, and the more that I've thought about it, the more I do have an appetite for Cade. I mean, again, this game just sets up perfectly for him to go off. This is the game where a player to his caliber needs to pull his weight against a banged up Dallas team that traditionally, you'd be more in an underdog role, but at home is a slight underdog right around that pick 'em price. The Pistons should honestly be in a really great spot to win this game, and they're only going to get there if Cade's leading them. So this may be one of those spots where he is worth the admission of over 10K.
What do you do with the rest of Detroit? I've got like scattered amounts of just about everybody. 20% of Asar, 15 Duran, about 15 of Hardaway, 5 to 10 on Harris and Beasley. So I'm getting a bunch of these pieces. I guess Asar Thompson would be the guy I have the most.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Asar Thompson at about 14%, Hardaway 7%. I'm pretty much the same, right? I mean, I'm scattered all over the place. So Dallas just being hindered how they are, it offers a lot of opportunities for this cheaper price on a Detroit team that's been vulnerable all year. So this is really going to be one of those rare times where you're going to get a lot of exposed pieces from Detroit and in a potentially very favorable matchup. So I'm pretty much the same. Nothing too crazy, though, outside of Paul Reed and Cade Cunningham, just how we drew it up.
Yeah. Lots of Cade, lots of Paul Reed. One of those I feel great about. The other I feel less great about.
Right.
Maybe that'd be the answer. But we got more games to talk about. Next one up, we're going to another pay up option here. Denver Nuggets, 9-point favorites in Philadelphia, 233 total. Denver's at full strength. They don't have a single guy on the injury report that matters for today. That normally plays. Deron Holmes being out matters, but he was going to be out today one way or the other, and hasn't played at all this year and won't play this year. But we do have some other interesting stuff going on for Denver, because Aaron Gordon got his starting lineup spot back last time out, but it wasn't for Russell Westbrook. It was for Christian Brown. Now we need to make sure that continues to happen, because that can affect some of the other things for Denver. But if Aaron Gordon is back in the starting lineup once again, 4,400, power forward, center eligible, currently projected for 42% ownership. I have no issue with it. I'm getting him. I don't know how you avoid it. He's just not priced for what he will be if he's back in the starting lineup. He's guaranteed. I can't guarantee his performance, but I can guarantee this. He is a value option because a week from now, Aaron Gordon will be 5K. So take the free money while you can is the way that I look at it.
Yeah, and clearly that's reflected, like you said, the ownership. And despite that, I'm still 2x that. I mean, I boosted up Aaron Gordon because of exactly what you said, Josh. I mean, the price for him isn't going to be there the longer this prolongs with him in the starting lineup. In this matchup, again, sets up very well for him. I mean, he can kill you on both sides of the floor, which makes him such a dynamic threat. And against Philadelphia, a team, much like we were talking about with Dallas, much like we were talking about with Charlotte, I mean, going against these teams is very viable because of how many loose ends they have. So if there's a spot with Denver is a pretty sizable favorite, and you may get someone like Jokic taking his foot off the pedal a little bit. You may prop up someone like Aaron Gordon, who again can kill you not only on the defensive front, but then can kill you in transition, can kill you in the assist game. I mean, there's just so many ways that Aaron Gordon can put together a quality performance, and the price is just, it's just too beautiful to ignore here. So I'm completely with you all over Aaron Gordon. This may be one of the best spots you get from him all year long. So completely invested there. And Josh, I'm also pretty invested the aforementioned Russell Westbrook. I like him a lot as well, especially when you're comparing him to the value or lack thereof that Jamal Murray offers. I mean, you're getting a lot better, not a lot better price, but you're getting $1,000 better in favor of Russell Westbrook, somebody in that starting lineup rotation. And again, someone who's never going to get fatigued here, kind of like an Aaron Gordon, can get you on both sides here. And his usage is practically the same as Jamal Murray. And he's actually better in terms of assist percentage. Yet again, you're getting that better price. So this just sets up greatly for Russell Westbrook, still projected for 30 minutes. We have him at Stokastic. Him and Aaron Gordon absolutely love for this slate tonight.
Russell Westbrook currently projected for 13% ownership on DraftKings. He is in 26% of my lineups. Actually, we got ownership and projection updates 3 minutes ago, just in case you have that up on your screen and didn't know. You can give that a refresh if you want to. Yeah, I'm 2xing Russell Westbrook. Now, everybody on this show knows I am a noted Russell Westbrook supporter. Nobody supports Russell Westbrook better than I do. And today, I'm supporting him once again. As long as he maintains his spot in the starting lineup, he looks like an awesome play today, and I'm happy to get to him. Now, do I think that he will one day lose that role? I do. Do I think it's today? I don't. So I'm going to get to Russell Westbrook. I'm also going to get to Jamal Murray, who I'm matching the field with. I'm a little bit over on Michael Porter Jr. He's only 9% owned. His minutes haven't really gone anywhere. He's still playing about 30 every night. The guy that I'm the lightest on is the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic. 12K, center only, 18% owned. I'm coming in behind that number right now. I'm reallocating my pay-up exposure to the guys that don't seem to be getting it in the same way. I'm getting away from Jokic. I'm getting away from Giannis and getting to some of these other guys. Now, to be fair, I do not like that. Denver's a lot better than Philly. Gershon Yabusele is not capable of guarding. No one's capable of guarding Nikola Jokic, but Yabusele is certainly not capable of it. Adam Bona is not capable of it. By all accounts, Jokic should absolutely nuke these dudes. But 12K is 12K, and we don't have a ton of good value. And like if you're using Paul Reed as your paydown option, well, then you're locking up both of your center spots into Paul Reed and Jokic, which, again, I don't have a problem with. It's Nikola Jokic, but that is a little bit more limiting. I'm okay with not having him, but every time that I don't have him, I feel like he has 90 fantasy points.
Right. It seems inevitable. I mean, the one time you're going to go against the Joker, it's remarkable how that happens. But I'm in the same camp with you, Josh. I mean, I'm under on him. I'm at about 10% exposure for Jokic. So not going too crazy for the big man here. I mean, this is the fourth game on a 5-game road trip for Denver. The first or the front end of a back-to-back. Then they got at Charlotte tomorrow, I believe. And it's just one of those games where they're right around a double-digit favorite, to where, again, you don't need Jokic to perform and produce as much as we've seen from him in the past. I mean, that's why a guy like Aaron Gordon is so great in a spot like that, and why I have him going up and why I'm kind of plateauing on Jokic here. Same can be said for Russell Westbrook. And I don't mind MPJ as well. I know you alluded to him a little bit, but I'm a little bit higher on MPJ too. So I think it's these role players where you're really going to see have a bigger impact than just solely Jokic. And, hey, famous last words, like you said as well. I mean, we're not trying to diss Jokic, but it just seems like one of those spots where I don't want to be too invested with him. The last time they played, it was a complete blowout. Philly's just completely banged up all over the place. Like you said, nobody can stop him, but there's just better options in the center position. And like, if you're doing it, yeah, Paul Reed, Jokic, I get it, but this isn't the game for me with Jokic to go crazy on.
Then we get to this disgusting Philadelphia side who will be without Andre Drummond, Joel Embiid, Paul George, Caleb Martin, KJ Martin, Jared McCain. And that is giving us 20% ownership to Tyrese Maxey, 30% ownership to Kelly Oubre, and about 10 to Justin Edwards and Ricky Council. So enjoy flipping that coin. I'm getting one of Maxey and Oubre. How are you feeling about the two premier options from Philadelphia?
Look, I mean, it's hard to go against Maxey really in any slate because you're going to get 36, 37 plus minutes from him pretty much every single night. And now with the way Philly's shaping up, without Drummond, without Paul George, without Embiid, so on and so forth, I mean, nobody else can create any offensive momentum but Tyrese Maxey. So everything runs through him. We know the incredible usage rates that he possesses. So yeah, if you're telling me you're going to have a lot of Maxey, I'm not necessarily going to go against it. I'm pretty even with the field though, so nothing too crazy. And the price is set fairly appropriately. I'm actually just a little bit, but not too crazily, a little bit ahead of the field here with Kelly Oubre. I mean, I don't mind the price compared with the potential upside that you can get out of Kelly Oubre tonight. So again, someone who's going to be logging a lot of minutes, and naturally with the injured teammates alongside him, his usage rate is increasing. And if a lot of that defensive focus is going to be centered around Maxey, then the next best guy to step up in my mind is going to be Kelly Oubre. So I think he could pad his stats here a little bit in a game that could get blown out of proportion. Not enough to where he exits the game early, but enough to where he can kind of do his thing on the offensive front and then give you enough to kind of end up in that optimal position here on Philadelphia. But again, wouldn't knock if you were going nuts on Maxey.
So I am not going nuts on Maxey. I have very little. So we are sharing the same sort of side on that one. Not that he doesn't look good. My exposure is just going to different players in that range. He's already getting 22% ownership. Jason Tatum at $200 cheaper is close to half of it. So I'm getting more Tatum. Cade is $400 more expensive than Maxey. He's half the ownership. I'm getting more of Cade. So I'm just redistributing someone like Maxey today. I'm not redistributing Kelly Oubre. He's in 25% of my lineups, basically right at the field. The minutes have been there. The position works. I have no real problem with the price tag. If they happen to be in it, he's probably playing 37 or 38. So I don't mind getting to Oubre. And then I'm right with the field on Justin Edwards. I don't have a feel for it. Whether it's him, whether it's Ricky Council, neither one of them are great options. Council's definitely a better per minute guy, but his minutes are a lot lower than Edwards, so they end up looking kind of similar. I don't have much of a take between the two of them. Are you using either of them for value?
No, I'm about the same here with Edwards. Council, I'm a little bit ahead, but again, it's minimal. So yeah, he's scattered here and there, but I didn't do any boosts up or down. I didn't downgrade any of these guys. But again, it's Maxey or Oubre, and then just a tad bit of a touch with Council and Edwards, but didn't think anything too highly of either of those guys.
All righty. I don't have anything else here for Philly, which means it's the perfect opportunity for you guys to take a brief break, hit that like button, and then click the link in the description of this video or potentially in chat so that you can get 1 free week of the Portfolio EV tool. This is a no-brainer of all no-brainers. If you want to take a market-based approach to beating sportsbooks and pick'em sites, click that link and sign up if you've never signed up before. We give you expected win rate, expected value, bet size calculations. You can shop across all the books. We have parlay builders, odds boost calculators, live odds for props and games, all of the advanced data that you would want to see around those. This is the way to build your bankroll nowadays. It used to be a conversation about playing cash games and then some percentage of GPPs. I think that's changed. I think you should be using tools like OddsShopper and the Portfolio EV tool as your cash games. Get that slow trickle of money coming in, then fire your bullets on the DFS side. You could do that very easily right now by clicking that link and signing up. This is going to cost you $0. If you've been interested in sports books or pick'em sites, depending on which site or which state you live in, this tool is what you're looking for. And the worst case scenario in all of it is that you walk away from it in 7 days, you didn't like it all that much, and it cost you nothing. That's a pretty good deal as far as I'm concerned. So please click that link and check it out. We're on to your Chicago Bulls. 4-point favorites in Toronto, 232 total. I have this as the fastest paced game on the slate. The Bulls are the second most owned team, 1 percentage point behind the Denver Nuggets. Now, obviously, we have no Zach LaVine right now. He has missed, I believe, the previous 2. Could have been 3, but something in that neighborhood. Talen Horton-Tucker is questionable. That likely doesn't matter at all. But we have a ton of ownership coming into this team. 40% right now to Kobe White. And then call it 10 to 15 on Vooch, Giddey, Dosunmu, Patrick Williams, and Lonzo. You're a Chicago guy, so I'm going to you for this one. How are you feeling about Kobe White? Because that ownership number seems high to me.
Okay, I get it. It is completely high on Kobe White, but I am all over Kobe White for this game, Josh. I agree with it and then some. So I'm actually above the public here in terms of my exposure with Kobe White. And the reason why is, yes, it's a pretty affordable salary here. Point guard, shooting guard eligibility, right? You get him in at 5,900. But the biggest piece here is that Zach LaVine is out. And a lot of times, when a player to Zach LaVine's caliber is out, and in the past, it's been, kind of when DeRozan's been out, Kobe White has really taken a hold of these opportunities and stepped up. I mean, watching him kind of grow year in and year out, you've watched him and you've seen this untapped potential with him. And when these star players have been out, when these trusted, consistent scorers like the aforementioned DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, they haven't been playing, that's the time for Kobe White to shine. And you can really see what he's capable of as a facilitator and as a scorer. And obviously, we know he's a lethal threat from beyond the perimeter, but even more so, he can attack the rim really well. And against this Toronto defense, that's 24th in defensive points per 100 possessions allowed. This is a prime spot for Kobe White to just absolutely explode on the offensive front. Sure, Kobe White could resort to just having a very, normal type of standard game here. And maybe you get someone else like a Vooch pop up like they did the first time they played Toronto and do fairly well. And Kobe White just has an average night. But I'm willing to gamble here and take a risk and have higher exposure with Kobe White, thinking he's set up for a very, very strong night.
Yeah, he looks great. He grades out as my number 4 overall play. And this was before I made some tweaks to his rates when I realized I might have had him a little under projected. I basically didn't get him on my last run. I am going to have a bit more when I rerun. I had not bumped his assist rate up for having no LaVine here, so I was a little light there. I do have his points prop correct, so I felt a little bit better. But, I mean, he grades out as a 5.7x value for me. He's well over a fantasy point per minute guy. And like I said, he was already 4th overall before I even made those changes. So I will get there. I do think that 40% ownership is a little high for what this slate is, but
true.
I'm assuming I end up in that like 20 to 30 range, and I'm okay with that. Because at 5,900 with multi-position eligibility, I like the flexibility. If you're playing cash games, you're playing Kobe White because that ownership is going to be tough to get away from. Who else do you want to play from your Bulls? Because right now, I have 2x the field of Nikola Vucevic. I have 4x the field of Josh Giddey, 2x the field on Patrick Williams. I've got some Jalen Smith at backup center on the off chance that something goes crazy for Vooch. I'm neutral to Lonzo Ball. I'm neutral to Ayo Dosunmu. This is my second most exposed team behind the Detroit Pistons. So I'm getting to all of Chicago. It's just not as much Kobe White.
All right, yeah, let's start with Giddey. Giddey, I'm a little bit above on. I do like him probably as the next best option here from Chicago. 3rd on the team in usage rate. He's a little pricier than you'd want, but understandably so. Again, this matchup, the poor defensive group of Toronto and Giddey, such a very strong player across the board in terms of what he can present offensively. So it'll lower ownership that you're seeing among the rest of the Bulls players here. I mean, Giddey sets up nicely. So I like him coming behind Kobe White in terms of the next best spot. Vucevic, I am curious your assessment here because I'm a little bit lower on Vooch. I actually downgraded him a tad. And the reason being is that, and again, their first matchup, Vooch did very well against Toronto, but against Jakob Poeltl and against some of these stronger bigs who do present a tough defensive presence. I mean, Pirtle's minus 3 points per possessions allowed. We see Vooch falter. Not a lot, not always, but often it does happen. I mean, you've seen it, happen in the recent, I forget what game they just played recently, but it was against a decent big. And I went in it was on Portfolio EV, Vooch under 21.5 points or whatever it was. And without even going too deep into it, I said, yeah, I'm absolutely going to take that, because anytime you have a strong big on the other side, I'm usually looking to go against the grain with Nikola Vucevic. So I get that the price is alluring there in this center position. And again, Toronto's defense isn't good all throughout, but specifically with that one-on-one matchup, unless Pirtle gets in foul trouble, I think it could be a long night for Vooch. But I am curious your thoughts as to why you're a little bit higher on it.
I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that Levine's not here. And when you take 28, 29, 30% usage off the floor, it gets reallocated somewhere. But
True.
like Giddey can only soak up so much of it because he's an inefficient scorer. Dosunmu, Patrick Williams, not those kind of guys. Lonzo is not really in that role for this team. And then you're onto the bench rotation of Buzelis and Terry and Phillips. And I just don't know where else it goes. So I'm a bigger believer in Vooch's offensive upside today just because of the lack of Levine. But I'm definitely not excited to go up against Jakob Poeltl, who defensively is a problem. I mean, he's a legitimate, real center body. He's not just some like phony center. He is a proper 5, which is not the best. So hopefully we're getting a bit more of the stretch Vooch variety for today.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. But yeah, that's pretty much how the Bulls are wrapping out for me. With Lonzo Ball, I just feel like you never really know what you're going to get with Lonzo. I mean, this guy's volatile, and until he really gets back to a true form, I'm kind of trying to avoid him. I'm not completely downgrading him or fading him, but I'm certainly not going to give him any upgrades, even with the absence of Zach LaVine. So unless on an off day, our projections are really high on Lonzo Ball, and I know they're fairly pro Lonzo, but not too crazy, I'm typically going to be pretty middle of the pack on Lonzo. So I'm indifferent. I mean, he can get you one night and have a great performance, but most nights he's probably going to be subpar.
Yeah, I share that. Like, while I am right around the field on him, I'm not excited about having him until we just see him playing regular minutes in a bigger fashion. He kind of just seems stuck around 24. And that kind of, in these sims, and it's kind of universal, he doesn't have the same right tail to his outcomes as some other people do that could fall into a couple extra minutes. Now, I guess technically he can fall into a couple extra minutes, but they don't seem to be doing that. Whereas some other guys that are projected for 24 might actually be able to play 28 or 29 if it goes like the right direction. This doesn't feel like that spot. So I'm happy to be around the field because I think he grades out well in a good matchup. But at the same time, he isn't somebody that I would want to take a stand on, because for his ceiling, you need the extra playing time. And I don't know if he has it in him just yet.
Yep, completely agree with you. So yeah, again, that's pretty much how it rounds up for Chicago with me. But Lonzo's just kind of a pause for me. Waiting to see.
Now the Toronto side of this one, still a little tricky for us right now. We're gonna have to wait on a little bit of this. Grady Dick is questionable. Kelly Olynyk is questionable. Emmanuel Quickley is questionable. Jamal Shed is doubtful now for this one. 20% ownership to Pirtle, 20% ownership to RJ Barrett, 5 or below to everybody else on this team. Now that's with the assumption that Quickley and Dick would be in. I am matching the field on Jakob Poeltl. So while I am getting to Vooch, I am getting to the opposite side. I'm right around the field on RJ Barrett, who looks good at 7,300 at small forward, but does get limited a little bit if Quickley is in. And then I'm actually at 15% of a 5% owned Scotty Barnes. So I'm grabbing the 3 best pieces from Toronto right now. Do you like the Raptors at all? Or are you just going to have 0 because they play the Bulls?
No, look, hey, I'm going to be as much against the Bulls on any given night usually compared to most NBA fans. Yes, I'm high on Kobe White, but if I can fade Chicago, I'm going to look to do it. And this is one of those nights to a certain extent. So I told you that I am kind of anti-Vooch tonight, and I am a little bit higher on Poeltl naturally. So I think he does present himself as a solid center option as well. 6,600 at DraftKings. A little bit, like I said, above pool ownership. I'm at about 25% exposure. So the reason that I like Poeltl, we know what Vooch is on the defensive side, and it's someone who does not pose a threat. And effective field goal percentage wise, Pirtle's very solid. And naturally, that's going to be the case when a lot of your shots are coming within 4 feet of the buck, and a lot of them are happening at the rim. And Chicago's brutal at defending shots at the rim. They're allowing the second most attempts within 4 feet of the bucket, 25th in opponent field goal percentage, right around that area. And as I already mentioned, Vooch is the main culprit of why that is, because he's just not a great defender. He's kind of looking to get out and try to defend someone along the perimeter more so and divert all his attention to the offensive side. But if Pirtle wants to bully him down low, and if Billy Donovan isn't making the necessary adjustments, then this could be a really strong game for Pirtle, relatively speaking, to his degree. But yeah, I think Pirtle's a good option here. And RJ Barrett obviously depends on the injury status here, but Barrett would be a great guy to have as well, just based on what happened the first matchup, based on where his shot percentages come from and his usage rate, all dependent on Emmanuel quickly. Not sure if we've gotten any updated news on him. I haven't checked since we've started the show, but okay, so we haven't. So yeah, I mean, again, that really all depends on what happens with Quickly, right? Because if Quickly's out of the game, then huge boost in my mind to RJ Barrett. And if not, then that's going to completely change things and definitely going to downgrade a little bit, and curious to see how our projections react to that as well. But those would be the top two guys for me. Not too high on Scotty Barnes. Again, that's very dependent on what happens with Quickly. But Pirtle and then RJ Barrett, those are the guys from Toronto that I'd be circling out, but especially Pirtle for tonight, regardless, I should say, of if Emmanuel Quickly's playing or not. I think it's very advantageous spot for him against Vooch.
Well, I'm glad that we're both on the Jakob Pirtle side. I just need one of the centers in this game to go well, because I've got Pirtle, I've got Vooch, I even have Jalen Smith. One of these centers has to be good, I think, based on that logic.
Right.
All right.
Can only hope.
1,700 people in the door. Hit that like button. We got to run that number up. Live before lock coming up in 15 minutes, but 2 games left to go. Boston Celtics, 11-point favorites in New Orleans, 232 total. This is a full strength. Emmanuel Quickly will start today. So we just got that news in. Perfect timing. Sam Hauser's questionable. Everybody else for Boston is in. Call it 10 to 15% ownership on Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kristaps Porzingis. By the way, all of the Toronto guys are in. Grady Dick in, Kelly Olynyk in as well. So 10 to 15% on Tatum, Brown, Porzingis. No ownership to the rest of these guys. I have 28 of Tatum, so 2x. I have 24 of Jaylen Brown, so about 2x. I am under the field on Kristaps Porzingis, but I think Tatum and Brown are going underrepresented for this slate. Given where some of the ownership is, obviously not that appealing of a matchup. You could very easily see Boston not being in this one because they're destroying the Pelicans. That's what they should do. They tend to play down to their competition, so we shall see. But if I'm looking at this game right now for Boston, I want Tatum and Brown, and that feels good.
Completely agree with both of these guys. I mean, look, this is a game that sets up perfectly in my mind for someone like Jaylen Brown's caliber against a terrible defense in the Pelicans. 29th in defensive points per possessions, 28th in defensive effective field goal percentage, a team that seems like they've already mailed it in. And in games like this for the Boston Celtics, to where they are in this comfortable spot, you're a sizable favorite. This is often where we see Jason Tatum kind of take that back seat a little bit, and Jaylen Brown can really prop up as the main offensive guy, and you're getting him at that cheaper price, and we know his usage rate is right behind Tatum. So for me personally, because I know how you feel about this, unless your mind's changed throughout the day, but I kind of actually prefer Jaylen Brown a little bit just because of how I expect the game flow to occur here. But I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're a little bit higher on Jason Tatum. But again, my thing that I would fear is just Boston being a comfortable favorite, that perhaps Tatum kind of takes a little bit of a back seat. But how are you feeling about that as we get closer to tip off?
I have them basically equal. I have like one extra lineup with Tatum compared to Brown. My underlying data basically has them equal, separated by 1% in optimal rate. I do think Jaylen Brown is a lot easier to click on. You get that $1,700 savings. You get shooting guard, small forward eligibility in comparison to 2 forward positions. So I think the flexibility is a lot easier to grab for Jaylen Brown. I think because of where Tatum is in his salary in comparison to like your Giannis's, I think he looks like a more interesting ownership pivot than Brown does.
Okay. Yeah.
I like them both. I like them both.
Agreed. And with Porzingis here, I'm pretty even with the field on where Porzingis is looking. Again, the thing that scares me, same kind of sentiment in the sense that if this game gets out of proportion early on, there's no need to keep Porzingis out there and risk anything detrimental occurring to him. Great matchup, sure. Realistic outcome, maybe not for a beneficial spot in your DFS lineup.
Anything else for Boston? I don't really have anybody that is jumping off the page right now.
Nope, that's about it. Drew Holiday was a little, it drew my curiosity at first, but Drew Holiday's just shown he's really not that guy that you want to go out of your way to include. So yeah, no, just pretty high on Brown, then Tatum right behind him, and Porzingis a little bit lower, but don't hate the idea of it.
Second lowest team. Oh boy, those were almost words. Second lowest owned team on the slate is the New Orleans Pelicans. Jordan Hawkins is out. He missed their most recent game. Obviously, no Brandon Ingram, no Herb Jones. DeJounte available. Daniel Tice out. Zion Williamson questionable. Now, as of right now, no one's getting any love for the Pelicans. No one has more than 5% ownership. That's Murphy and Murray on the FanDuel side. Everybody else is below that on either site. Assuming Zion is in, I got to 14% of DeJounte Murray. I think that's just kind of random for what this is. I don't think the Pelicans look that good at all. If Zion happens to be out, we're going to be able to bump up some of these guys and maybe create a little bit of value. But if he's in, I don't think I'm going to have much of the Pelicans. As of right now, this would be my third least owned team. And essentially, it's in the same group as the Clippers and the Mavs.
So I need you to give me your thoughts here on Zion Williamson, because
Okay.
I get what the public perception is of Zion. We're all aware of this. He's not playing back-to-backs. It's the Pelicans. It's all of this. And he's not going to play extended minutes. But the minutes that he does play, Josh, I mean, talk about your best bang for your buck. I mean, Zion just absolutely crushes it out there. And his ownership is incredibly low because of these feelings that everybody has in this perception on him. I get that you're seeing him only at power forward and is a little bit pricier based on the lack of production you have gotten to him in terms of constant playing. But when he's out there, man, is he effective? I wouldn't hate getting to Zion a little bit more here than the field is, but maybe talk me off the ledge here with Williamson.
I mean, if he were 4% owned, I do think that is a hair low. I have him 7% optimal, a 20% chance of 47.5 fantasy points, which is 10 clear of his projection. The only thing that concerns me for Zion is the same thing that concerns me for Lonzo Ball. I don't know if he's going to be playing 30, 31, 32 minutes, which is what you're really looking for. Like, if this game's competitive, if they're in it and they're playing their best guys the whole game, I don't know what Zion's minute ceiling is right now. Is it 28 or is it 32? Because if it's 32, he's wildly underowned.
Mm-hmm.
If it's 28, then I think it's right to be apprehensive. That's kind of the type of decision that like wins you GPPs. You need to be right for that particular day. And if you think that Zion can get those minutes in a competitive matchup, and obviously if the matchup's competitive and Zion's getting those minutes, you're going to assume that Zion had something to do with it. So it's a little bit self-fulfilling. I like the idea. I'm apprehensive about his minutes, so it's not going to be something for me. I don't hate the idea of going to him, though, because at some point, I think he will get those minutes, and you'd rather be the first person to it than the last person to it.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I completely get that. And outside of Zion, that's pretty much it. I mean, I've got no love for DeJounte Murray tonight. He can be volatile from time to time. You're spending up a little bit too much. It's just a point guard position for somebody in a tough matchup against the Celtics. And if it does become a blowout game, whether or not Zion is playing, DeJounte Murray, again, another guy who just may be taking his foot off the pedal. So, yeah, it would be Zion or bust for me with the Pelicans.
Get ready for late swaps, folks. That's an 8 o'clock start. That is why you watch playback. So Greg and I can give you the goods on what to do with the Pelicans if and when it happens. We close it out. The Milwaukee Bucks, 2-point favorites in San Antonio, 234 total. This is where we talk about the 40% owned Giannis, the 17% owned Chris Middleton. No, thank you. The 10% owned Damian Lillard. Kind of interesting. The basically unowned Brook Lopez. Very interesting to me. Just talk to me about Giannis. Now, I want to be clear. I think he's the best play on the slate if you're paying up.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the idea of pivoting off of his ownership. What are you doing?
Unfortunately, I am falling in line with the public here and being all over Giannis. I mean, I absolutely love him in this spot. Again, it's a star versus star matchup. The young rising international star in Wemby going against Giannis, who has been in that spot, still in that spot up to this point, and someone who performed a lot better the first go around when these two guys squared off. Sure, that may add a bit more incentive for Wemby this time around, but I think Giannis is still going to big brother him here. And more importantly, without Bobby Portis in the mix, you've seen a lot of increase in terms of the not even usage rate, but just rebounding rates for Giannis here with his assist numbers as well. I mean, it's really propped him up more than you would think because you already know the impact he has. So just because Bobby Portis is out of the mix, regardless of the opponent, I mean, Giannis has thrived because of it. So he's been on an absolute tear. It should be a closer game here. Road spot spread is indicating that it's going to be a back and forth battle. I think it's worth spending up on Giannis. So, yeah, I'm all over Antetokounmpo in this spot. And again, I get that everybody and their mother is, but unfortunately, so am I. So, yes, I am Team Giannis tonight, Josh.
Yeah, I totally get it. He grades out great for me. I have no problems with it. If you're playing a cash game, he's your absolute, no doubt about it, pay up option. You don't even think twice. In GBPs, I'm going to live and die by the fact that I need him to be worse. Now, I've got 10% of Dame right around the field. I got 10% of Gary Trent, a little bit over the field. I've got 14% of a $5,900 Brook Lopez at 2% ownership, and I love it. This dude's playing like 35 minutes a night. There's no Bobby Portis here. He's just out there playing a ton. And I like the idea of having the big Brook Lopez body out there up against Victor Wembanyama, or at least I hope that it goes well. So, Brook Lopez, big time contrarian option for me. Giannis Antetokounmpo, big time fade for me. Are you doing anything else with the rest of Milwaukee?
I am right in line with you with Brook Lopez, believe it or not. I think he is one of the best sneaky options in this slate. Again, all of that attention is going to go toward Giannis, so that opens up the doors for Brook Lopez, who somehow, as you mentioned, is logging these 35-plus minute performances. In Sacramento, I mean, from short mid-range, they're really slacking there in terms of opponent field goal percentage. Brook Lopez, when he does get within the paint, that's where a lot of his shots occur. We know the threat he poses from beyond the arc, so he's obviously, hopefully, for our sake, going to kill you from there. But yeah, I mean, if Brook Lopez is going to get 30-plus minutes in this close of a game, then yeah, I really like him at the price of 5,900. So couldn't agree more, my man.
Love it. Love it. He's my pivot today. And I like, not to mention, it's an 8 o'clock start. So I'm happy to have a little bit more of Boston or the Pels or Milwaukee or San Antonio, because I'll be able to move that around if need be.
Yeah.
If something happens in those 7:30 games as well. Do you have anything else for Milwaukee? Any Gary Trent? Any Middleton? What else are you looking at?
Not too much Gary Trent. Don't hate the idea of it based on the potential for this game and at his price. Chris Middleton, just again, one of those guys who just feels gross to add to your lineup. It almost like Alonzo Ball, but worse. Like, you don't know what the hell you're getting out of Chris Middleton on any night. So I don't want any piece of Middleton, and I'm sure you share the same sentiment as well.
He breaks my heart, man. I've been a huge Middleton stan for a while. Basically, the moment that I put my stamp of approval on him, he has not been healthy or what we needed.
Uncanny.
Now, to be fair, that was 5 years ago, but it still happened nevertheless. So apologies to Chris Middleton for doing what I did. I have half the field right now. I just don't trust him. Surely one day he's just going to play 28 minutes and smash at 5,100, but I'm just going to hope it's not today. And then we get to the San Antonio Spurs. So we're getting 20% ownership to Devin Vassell, about 15 to Chris Paul, Stephon Castle, and Keldon Johnson, and just 8 to Victor Wembanyama. I'm going to start on Vassell. I think he looks great. 6,100, great positionality. I like the matchup. The minutes are there. I'm actually over the field on Vassell. There haven't been too many guys that are getting like 20+% ownership that I'm getting or getting over on. Vassell happens to be one of them. Do you see him as like a really flexible option today?
Yeah, I'm over the field as well with Vassell. I mean, look, his usage rate, it could be getting higher, but this is a game where you could see that spike up. And he's hitting 39% of his shots from deep. Milwaukee allowing the 25th most shot attempts from beyond the arc. So this could be a game where he really comes alive from beyond the arc. And obviously, and I know you'll get into this with Wembanyama, but if he's going to have a good game and that falls in line with your projections, you could get a high assist rate there coming from Vassell. So, yeah, I like him with that eligibility, with that price. He's my top selection here from San Antonio.
I agree that he is my top selection from San Antonio, but I've got 22% of an 8% owned Wemby. This is another spot where I'm taking some of that Giannis exposure and reallocating it. And Wemby hasn't really been Wemby a lot like lately. Not that he's been bad, because I don't want it to sound like that, but we haven't seen one of those like true outlier Wemby days in a bit. I'm hoping that happens today. Now, I don't have his optimal rate all that high, but I have his boom score at 59.5 fantasy points, and I think he does it 40% of the time. It really just comes down to the relationship in fantasy points between him and Giannis and Jokic. And if he can get up over 60, then I'm going to be happy that I had him. But I like the idea of pivoting here. If he's going to be 1/4 the ownership of Giannis, I don't think this is a 75-25 spot for how often Giannis beats him. So I'm going to get a little bit more Wemby. I'm going to get a little bit less Giannis. And I'm getting a little bit less of the rest of San Antonio as well. A little bit under on Paul, half the field on Castle, half the field on Keldon Johnson. I have a little bit of Jeremy Sohan, which you tell it's a weird slate if I'm getting him because I never do. Are you getting any other pieces of San Antonio?
No, not really. I mean, maybe a little bit more than the field with Chris Paul. Again, in just this type of environment, I think his veteran presence against Milwaukee, a game he'll get up for and can really make an impact. And not too bad at 5,800. So I'm a little bit above the field with Chris Paul. I'm below with Victor Wembanyama. I did downgrade him a tad, but it's not to say I don't get the angle you're pursuing, the contrarian thought process. And again, if this is going to be a spot where it is a back and forth battle, and it's, so to speak, that revenge narrative for Wemby based on what happened the first game, yeah, this would be a good spot to get that contrarian hit. So I've got no arguments against it. I'm just a little frightful going against the younger big man in Wembanyama against Giannis, who's still playing at the absolute peak right now.
6 games up, 6 games down. Danny, first show in the books, man. How you feel?
Feeling good, man. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see till all the games wrap up. We only had one little hitch with the audio. I thought I ruined everything, but hey, I still might ruin everything again. We'll have to wait until the end of tonight. But no, it was great, man. I appreciate you having me on. It was a blast. So happy to do it.
It's great to have you. I think chat's pretty happy about it as well. We are at the time for Live Before Lock, and we just so happen to see Greg Ehrenberg and Eric Lindquist right now. Eric even got the memo. Same gear on today with me.
Do we really? Prize Picks action?
Yeah, I got the hoodie. You got the shirt,
They're
the
so
t-shirt. It's
They're
so
so
comfortable. The shirt is so comfortable. I mean, I love the hoodie too, but it's a different material. The shirt's great.
Yeah, they don't like giving us money anymore because they just got too big, too fast, or something. I don't know. So yeah, never going to be working with Prize Picks ever again. But I don't think they care. We are equipped though with the comfiest gear in all the land. I'm okay with that.
I've got great shirts from Prize Picks, and I've got things to trim my balls from Manscaped. Man, I got all the things that I could possibly need from our.
You guys are a couple of narc sellouts.
Oh, we're narcs. We're narcs. That's hilarious coming from you.
Yeah,
I
yeah, some nerve.
Clue. No clue what you're referring to. No,
Danny, how was the first show?
It was good, guys. It was good. Yeah, happy to be sending it off to the pair of you two. And look, all I got to say is it's been entertaining, not only just being on the first show, but also all the chatter surrounding Greg. I mean, Greg, it's been hysterical seeing all of your interactions on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it. But what's been funny is I was sending it to a group of my friends. I was like, hey, this is one of my coworkers. Look at what happened back in 22. I was like, he said this facetiously. And then someone pulls up your second tweet where you essentially doubled down on it and said, no, I have the inside scoop. And they're like, yeah, seems like he was really kidding around. So, no, it's been entertaining to see everybody's comments.
I just imagine an NBA boardroom. I imagine an NBA boardroom with Adam Silver at the head being like, right. Terry Rozier, Greg Ehrenberg DFS, and they've literally gone through everything. I bet the kid who came to shovel your driveway was a narc. I have a pretty good feeling that
could be. I mean, the other thing that was really funny about this too is because this got picked up on a lot of like TV, radio, and news outlets. There was only one that actually reached out to me for my comment and actually like asked for like my side of what was going on, which also I don't really care what people say. I just kind of thought it was funny the amount like the New York Post, a couple of other outlets too. Like they just kind of like they just included me in the story as a person who had intimate knowledge of the thing if it wasn't just trolling on Twitter. Like there was the only ESPN was the only outlet that reached out to me. And David Payne Perdaman actually was like, hey, I'm working on a story and want to get your input. on this. Every other one was just like, hey, we saw the tweets. This is what we believe happened. And they just posted it as a fact.
It's incredible. It's the best thing ever. For that, like, I remember that day. For that to get unearthed is just amazing. For you to have tweets about it is amazing. Everything there worked out so perfectly.
It was good. It was lightning striking. Also, something that was really funny. David Fiber in chat says, no, Greg knows Terry Rozier's girlfriend. Related to it, I had a couple people were joking about it. I had a lot of people reach out to me on Twitter, DMing me, thinking I was actually hooking up with Terry Rozier, and I was the person that was being implicated in the Twitter rumors, which I also thought was a really funny intersex of things coming together.
I wonder if maybe you could end up doing like a podcast tour about it. Like, I'd love to know what Bryce Mitchell thinks of your thoughts on Terry Rozier. He's probably incredibly interested.
I think he would see my last name and draw certain conclusions and not welcome me on his podcast.
Probably not.
If I had to get, I don't have. It's not that hard for me to figure out what Bryce Mitchell's opinion of me might be.
Well, don't bring any books. That's for sure. Not a big book guy.
Oh, he's a big Bible guy. Big Bible guy.
Well, yes, that book would be fine. Some of the others might change his tune a bit.
Yeah, he loves. Being
this is Greg's Hawk Tua moment. The exact same thing.
Yeah, well, wait until the other videos come out before you make that claim.
Similar skill sets.
Yeah.
Well, Danny, I can't wait to have you as a co-host here soon on Live Before Lock. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Likewise, man. Likewise. So it's been great chat with you guys. Obviously, looking forward to watching you two and breaking down all the news that comes in the last second. I imagine that's always keeping the both of you on your toes. That and any locks that Greg gets on the side. Hey, that's what keeps you guys going.
I'm such a
y'all
guys
haven't done yet, by the way. Like the video, subscribe to do it for Danny. Danny's first time doing the deep dive or Live Before Lock. So, Danny, thank you for jumping on. If you guys haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to have another guest popping on in a minute. But first, I just want to ask you, Eric, a quick question here. We've only got one player who's questionable on the injury report for today. And by the way, Josh, Danny, you guys can take off for the night. It's weekend time. You're not here as hostages or anything like that. So, Eric, and also Danny, you could just there you go. There we go. We've only got one player on the injury report for today. It's Zion Williamson. So as we go about starting to build our lineups heading into lock, this is obviously something we have to consider. It's not just that he's on the injury report, but he's obviously clearly a key player as well. Do you have any strong leans on whether Zion is going to be in or out? And is that impacting how you're building your lineups heading into lock?
Have you watched him play recently, by the way? He's lost like 40 pounds. He looks incredible. And it's weird because like we're getting close to the deadline. I doubt anything really happens with him. I mean, this version that we're watching of Zion right now might be the best long-term version. If he can stay healthy, if he can keep the weight off, if he can do the things he's doing now, it's like in his face. He's lost at least 30, 40 pounds. And I think, well, being sick today, obviously I would want to play Zion low owned. I think in some capacity, I caught the tail end of the last show. Didn't sound like they were overly enthused, but like 30 minutes of him, 31 minutes in a game that, you know, he would be the only reason it would stay competitive in some capacity. He's only 8,400 here at 2%. And I think that there's a world where we just kind of like get ourselves to a little bit of Zion Williamson in the event he plays. But I've got it at like 60-40 that he ends up sitting in this spot. I think, you know, like the early day downgrade hasn't meant as much, but when it's a guy like Zion, where he comes out with the comments saying that the Pelicans, you know, he's employed by them, they make the decisions on whether I play or not. That's kind of the way this works. I think you got to get yourself onto a little bit more DeJounte Murray, have to get yourself onto a little CJ McCollum. And then I think my favorite is probably Trey Murphy, just because of the shooting guard, small forward, 7,600 price tag. I don't know if I want to get to like the Jeremiah Robinson Earls or take any shots there, but there's no Daniel Tice there either. What do you think about it?
They're so cautious with Zion that I tend to think he's more likely to sit than play. It's just what we've seen year over year with him. I don't want to just outright reproject the entire Pelicans team as if he's going to be out. So the way that I want to be approaching this, and we'll talk more about the strategy as we go here, more so the thing that you and I more standardly do, which is boosting the players that we'd want to be getting exposure to who are pay up options on the team should Zion be out. So looking at guys like potentially Trey Murphy, looking at somebody like DeJounte Murray and giving them positive ROI boost to have our lineups a little bit more backloaded. And that'll just give us flexibility for the late swaps. like I said, if I have to guess, I'm going to be a little bit more on the side of Zion sitting than playing, but I'm not uber confident in that or anything either. Also, did you see Zion's comments the other day? Because, we very often see people get all up in arms about players resting and players being soft.
I brought it up. I brought it up when I was breaking it down. I brought it up.
So I don't know. Like I just, if I had to put a percentage, I'll say 60% chance he sits. That's where
you and I have the exact same percentage too. Did you hear the percentage, or were you not listening to me there either?
No, I was. I'm just giving my my percentage.
60-40. I think we're on the same page where I think because it's Zion, more likely that he sits than not, but barely.
Yeah. So we'll see. If we don't get the news during this show, we'll certainly be getting it on playback. And in just a little bit, we're going to be talking about some of the players that we like as well. But I want to bring a guest in really quick. We're doing something here that I think could be a good way. We're trying different ways to get you guys some betting information. So we're going to have Coach T come on right now. You guys could follow him on Twitter as well at his Twitter handle. I want to make sure that I read it off correctly here. It is at Coach T Posey, Posey. So Coach has a tails package, and we're going to have some people come on the show just for a couple minutes, give out a bet to you guys, let you guys know where you could follow them for more information. So Coach T Posey, I should have asked you what it is that you like to go by, but you guys could follow him on Twitter at Coach T Posey. What's happening, man?
Not much, man. Just glad to be on the show. Glad to be a part of the Tails, Awesome-O, Stokastic, all the above network, and get my plays out to you guys, and hopefully we get some cash and winners.
All right. So
awesome.
Just one bet for the audience here. What is something you're looking at for today?
Yeah, so I played a 6-pick for my my guys earlier today. A lot of those have been moved on Prize Picks, so unfortunately I can't really give those out right now. But right now on the one of the optimizers, I have Michael Porter Jr. over 20.5 points and rebounds. He's got a good 3.06% EV chance to hit. So I really like Michael Porter Jr. tonight, over 20.5 rebounds and points.
There we have it. So Coach T, you guys can go check out his Tails package over at Tails. And other than that, anything else you want to tell the people?
Now, right now, my plan is $5 per month, a very limited time offer. So guys join in, jump in. Now it's cash.
What do you
there
coach?
We go. Coach T,
well,
thank you for coming on the show, and have a good night, man.
Hang on. I wanted to ask him, what does he coach?
Well, I coached basketball for 12 years.
That's awesome. High school, college?
I did. Yeah, I played in college, then coached high school for 12 years.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, we loved having you on. Thanks for sharing a play with the people. And I'm going to fire that up here myself. Hopefully you continue crushing it over there in Tails.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Have a good night. All right. Getting back to the slate here, Eric, is there anything else you're keeping your eye on as far as news is concerned where, we've got Zion as the only player who's questionable, but is there anything else that's important that you think could change?
Starting lineup potentially for Charlotte. I think there's a world where Josh Green missed one game. They went to Okogie, and I think there was that world in the post-Miller world where we were kind of looking at Josh Okogie maybe being somebody that they wanted to get some spot starts to. I'm not saying that it's super likely, but I look at Josh Green's 11.5 PRA across the industry. And, a lot of what we're doing here is we're integrating some props into what we do in terms of DFS projections and how we go about giving you guys actionable information. That seems like a low number for a starter, even against the Los Angeles Clippers. He's eclipsed that in the last 3 games he's played with points alone. So, if you're looking from a betting perspective, Josh Green at 11.5 PRA, it's kind of tipping off to me that there's a world where maybe he doesn't get a full workload. And one of the main ways that would work is by him not starting. I also think the other one is a starting lineup more so than anything. Russell Westbrook, we're now looking at Denver losing 3 games in a row, 24.5 PRA for him across the industry as well. Aaron Gordon slips into the starting lineup, but I was a little surprised. You look at Darko projections. I know Josh is a big advocate, and it's basically just another way of being able to look at daily plus minus going across a longer timeline, but in a short-term sample size. Mm-hmm. Christian Brown's just better than Russell Westbrook. Their offensive defensive ratings are better with Christian Brown on the floor than Russell Westbrook. Is there a world where that switches back up? I think that Christian Brown would be a little bit more appealing, and obviously I'd want to get to nothing on that side of things, but it's such a shootout, such an interesting game environment that Denver's bringing to the table every single time. And, there's really nothing defensively on the Philly side you're worried about. So I'm not going to think too much about it. It's earlier in the slate, but anything you're keeping your eye on?
I think most notably for me is any kind of just official word on if we hear like definitively Aaron Gordon's expected to play 26 minutes or 28 minutes, just a specific number involved, I'd kind of be interested in that because he's so popular on the slate. And my first run of Sims, I'm getting to a lot of them. I assume that's the same for yourself as well. So I would want to just hear, something really, he played 30 minutes last game. If he plays 30 minutes again, then clearly he's looking really good. But I would want to know because the last game before that, he played 22 minutes. He starts and plays 30 minutes. Aaron Gordon said himself that he doesn't really think he needs to be restricted. He said he feels really good, but I would like to hear that he doesn't have a minutes restriction if that is news that we end up getting.
Yep, that's kind of where I'm at as well. Again, Aaron Gordon, there's a reason that he's pulling as much ownership. I thought he was an awesome late swap candidate last slate. It didn't work out the way that I thought it would. That's for sure. But that's kind of why you also want to be checking out the playback show afterwards. Greg and Josh, that will be one of those lineups. I mean, all of these games, besides Phoenix, Golden State. I mean, every single game, the 6 that we have on the main slate, they're all going to be covered by those guys. So it's a reason to hang out that full hour. There's going to be starting lineups that roll out, and I think we get 1 or 2 surprises.
Yeah, could certainly be the case. I'm curious, do you have somebody in mind? Do you think, I mean, obviously you can't call it a surprise if you're expecting it, but is there somebody you have in mind as a potential surprise scratch that makes you say that?
So there's 3 guys. I brought up Josh Green could potentially be a Kogi. I think Russell Westbrook could potentially be Christian Brown. And I think Stephon Castle has a chance as well. I mean, there's constant banter with the Sacramento Kings that they're looking at acquiring De'Aaron Fox. I find it hard to believe that Keldon Johnson and Stephon Castle, some combination of the two, more likely Stephon Castle, just because he's kind of proven himself as a decent enough rookie. Hit a little bit of a skid the last couple of games. Part of that is going over to Paris. Part of that is just, coming back and teams are starting to figure you out a little bit more. And offensively, he doesn't have a ton on that end of the floor yet. But Stephon Castle is somebody that wouldn't surprise me if they wanted to limit his minutes as we get closer to the deadline. Maybe you get a Champagny, maybe you get Vassell. It just gets extended run. But I'm not going to be doing anything crazy to account for it.
Yeah, we will see what kind of news breaks. And then also, we'll be on the playback show afterwards. If anything really surprising pops up, if you guys have any super chats or questions for us, let us know here over the course of the show. Jacob, curious, are the super chats here, were any of them answered during the last show?
Zion out, by the way.
There we go. All right, so we've got Zion officially being ruled out. Let's give a second for projections to update, and we'll answer a couple of questions here that are in the super chats, and then we can hit on the Zion news as well. But we'll get these questions out of the way first. We've got one here from Olrat14. Olrat wants to know, should he even mess around with AJ Green today? So AJ Green is another player who's questionable. The reason I omitted talking about him as being a guy who's questionable just because he doesn't really impact the slate for me. Do you see it differently, Eric?
No, he doesn't do a damn thing for me. I mean, if you wanted to try to take a shot or 2 on him, whatever. Like, if this is the random game, he knocks down 7 threes in the second unit, sweet. But there's nothing that I'm going to do to even screw around with AJ Green. Again, if he shows up, I'm playing 150 lineups. If he shows up in one of 150 and he knocks down 7 trays and wins something cool, but there's 18 other guys who look just like him.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Green, to Eric's point, he's somebody who, even if you have him in, you're probably not getting to him in lineups. We got him projected for, let's see, what is his ownership projection at? We've got AJ Green projected for 13 fantasy points at $3,300, and then projected for, sub 1% ownership. I don't know what you mean by screwing with AJ Green today, but if it's rostering him, don't roster him. If you think that he's going to significantly impact other players on the slate, that's not going to happen either. So Don't worry about it, all right.
If you're in San Antonio and going to hook up with him, congratulations. You had more sex with a professional athlete than any of us.
Related, 1-2 says Zion is on Ozempic, related to the big old woman in San Antonio that Chuck likes to reference. But 1-2 says Zion is on Ozempic, and then he's quoting me as being a snitch on Zion. I mean, listen, the guy's been in terrific shape this year. Hopefully he's able to stay healthy. not going to happen today because he's out sick. Maybe it was too much of the Ozempic. I know my dad was on it for a little bit, made him sick, and he had to get off of it. But Zion isn't able to play today, Eric. We now know this officially. What is this going to do to the Pelicans? We talked about some of the payoff options that we'd potentially be boosting as a result of this. Are there any value options that come into the fold now with Zion out?
Yeah, so the first guy right off the bat, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, 3K flat, power forward center. I think he probably ends up being the guy. It's him or Javonte Green. I think you probably get up against Boston where it's Jason Tatum. You could just very well see, it end up being Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. I think the most appealing is probably Brandon Boston. If you get any kind of minutes for him in a blowout or something kind of extends, like this game goes a little bit haywire. I mean, we also got Jordan Hawkins ruled out. So, I mean, there's not a dearth of options that are hanging out there behind him. But I think for me, just because it's a flat 3K power forward eligibility, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl 1 in terms of value, Brandon Boston 2. I think he carries a little bit more upside. He's better projected at the moment. But again, I'm under the assumption that JRE is going to end up starting.
It's tough because to your point, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl started the last time Zion was out, but the game before that was Javonte Green. So those were the two guys that you gave us as potential options, and I'm just not sure. Let's see, what were the matchups? So against Memphis, against Utah.
Yeah, Toronto's the other one, I think.
Which also doesn't even really help all that much because I would think you'd be more apt to play the bigger lineup against Utah, but that was the game that they went smaller. So I don't really know. I don't know what to make of it.
But Utah had a lot of pieces out, I think, going back to that game. Fair. So I don't think it was like the normal Collins and I'm pulling it up here on Popcorn Machine, trying to find it in 2 seconds. But it's one of the two guys that are basically going to be jumping up in terms of projection here. And I'm curious because, like, I think Javonte Green, because Brown Tatum, it just makes sense that it would potentially be him at 3,600. But a flat 3K Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, he's just been bleh the entire year. And like, he's really capping around like 22, 23, but like 3K is 3K now. He was 3,800, 3,600 when we started to get some of those starts rolling in. I mean, shit, he was up to 5,100, 5,600 back in November. There's whichever one of the two of them starts is going to be the more appealing option. I'll just put it that way. And like, we have 1-2 games, the Milwaukee San Antonio one, you can kind of rotate around some pieces, although I'm just hoping we get that starting lineup before the 2 games, Chicago, Toronto, Denver, Philly, and then I can kind of maneuver it around from there.
Just because it's news that we potentially might not get before those 2 games lock, what are you going to do? Are you going to assume that Jeremiah Robinson-Earl is the starter if we don't have that information for those 2 games? How are you going to go about approaching it? Because it is a very real possibility that we won't know until there's only 2 games left on the slate.
Yeah, Basketball Monster just switched in Javonte Green. So that's kind of interesting to me, is seeing that he's the guy that they have labeled as the potential starter. That's your former company. So, I mean, obviously very, very sharp basketball site. And I think that there's a world where, again, just the Brown Tatum matchup kind of has me thinking that maybe they go that direction as opposed to Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, who's more of like a 4.5. Like, he's not necessarily like your traditional 4. And Javonte Green's like a 3.5. He's not quite a 4. It's like they don't have an actual 4 to kind of throw into the lineup. But I think that's kind of where Tatum skews more towards a 3 than he does a 4. And I understand why they're going the Javonte Green route. I just think Jeremiah Robinson-Earl with the flat 3K would be the more appealing of the two to have start for us.
Javonte Green, $3,600 on DraftKings with small forward, power forward eligibility. We've got Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. He is the flat 3K, like you said, with the power forward center eligibility over on FanDuel. We've got Jeremiah Robinson-Earl at $3,700. He's only center eligible on FanDuel, which I think is, even if he starts, he's not the best fantasy producer. On DraftKings, he's really cheap. And then also he's got these position flexibility with the power forward. Even if he starts, I think it's going to be hard for me to justify a $3,700 Jeremiah Robinson with only center eligible. There's other spots I prefer to go. Do you view Jeremiah Robinson differently on FanDuel than DraftKings?
Exactly what you said. You laid it out perfect. I have nothing to add.
And then we've got Javonte Green over on FanDuel. He is at, where was it? $4,400 with only small forward eligibility. So same deal. I think that he looks a little bit better on DraftKings than he does on FanDuel, but I still feel better about Javonte Green if he was a starter on FanDuel than I do about Jeremiah Robinson-Earl if he was to end up starting. So let's see. I'll refresh the projections page to see if it's updated, which it is, just as I updated it 31 seconds ago. So, Jacob, if you wouldn't mind, throw the projections on screen and let's look at the New Orleans Pelicans. We'll look at the new player projections and what it is that we are expecting to go down as far as minutes go. Yeah, and just sort by the Pelicans. We're only looking at them. Remove some of the clutter. All right, so DeJounte Murray at 42.7 fantasy points. We got Trey Murphy at 37.5. CJ McCollum at 36. Messi gets a little bit of a bump here as well. That's somebody we didn't talk a ton about there, but we do have Messi projected for a pretty decent amount of fantasy points at $4,800, which does make sense too as somebody who gets a boost. I know that a lot of Messi unders have projected well in OddsShopper as of well, Eric, and they've played out really well because he just hasn't been closing games as of late, and his minutes have kind of been limited. Should we feel better about his minutes in the absence of Zion? Is he somebody who we're going to want to be loading up on in GPPs at 4,800?
I don't know. The reason I say that is that I'm going to rerun everything for some of these mid-range Pelicans. And my expectation is that Paul Reed at 3K is just going to eat up almost all of my center spots today when it's all said and done. I'm pretty in love with Paul Reed and getting to about as much of him as humanly possible. And because I've got that showing up for me, and it's a little bit deviated from just kind of what we're looking at. I mean, he's projected around 19, 20 fantasy points, but like he's better than Isaiah Stewart. He's a better fantasy producer than Isaiah Stewart. And he's a flat 3K, unlike what we've had for Isaiah Stewart lately. And there's been some slates where he's just been jammed recently after being like completely unowned beforehand. And nothing has really changed with the role at the center position. Darren playing around 30 and then 18, 20 minutes, hopefully for Paul Reed here in this spot. But I think with these mid-range Pelicans, as I update everything based on what we have for our projections, Trey Murphy going to show up a lot more. CJ McCollum going to show up a lot more. DeJounte Murray going to show up a lot more. I think I probably don't need a 4,800 Messi, and I'm probably going to be getting more to like the Jokic, Giannis, Wemby type tier of guys. I've got a lot of interest in Daniel Gafford on the other side of that Detroit game. I don't know if center is going to get me onto Messi in like a prominent way. Again, it's hard to really say. It's going to just all come out in the wash, but there's no doubt that he looks way better with Zion off the floor just from a rebounding perspective.
Yeah, and then also just the minutes, I feel better about it. There was a minutes ceiling for him before, but there was such a lower minutes floor for Messi in those games that Zion was playing as well. And as far as our projected starting lineup, Eric, we are projecting it to be JRE, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Jeremiah Robinson Earl. Somebody in chat said they're going to take a shot every time I said his name. So, although with that said, he said every time I mentions, and also that is horrific spelling of Jeremiah Robinson Earl. That is not at all how you spell that name, but I wanted to make sure that he is getting his proper shots in there.
Well, these are all the same people who are coming over from X and making sure that they let you know that you're a criminal and not spelling criminal correctly, which I've seen multiple times on Twitter recently around you, which, I mean, has this been the best 24 hours of your life?
It's been fun. I can't say it's been quite the best in terms of, so it's one of my two favorite things that's happened on Twitter. The other was the Wander Franco pants. Like this and the Wander Franco pants have both been good. But some of my DMs were really fun because some of the DMs are just completely insane people. And I've been messing with them, which I didn't get from the Wander Franco pants thing. Like this is just people messaging me to let me know. There's this one guy whose avatar is a Smurf. He is nonstop DMing me and quote tweeting my stuff and just letting me know that he's been in contact with the authorities.
That's great. I can't wait. Can't wait to have you get a knock on your door. It's gonna be just so amazing. It's gonna be the kid who came and stole money from you for shoveling.
Could be. I hope they take me out like Scotty Scheffler.
What?
Get the mugshot and the orange jumpsuit. I did think about doing that. I thought about ordering one of the orange jumpsuits for the show today, but I didn't know when it would get here. I didn't know. There was just a lot of things involved in it.
Yeah,
so.
I thought about like leaning into the other side and like cooperating with the authorities. That's what I thought about.
Yeah, that's if there is any way that I end up going to prison here, there's two people who I think we could point at. One would either be Eric to Jimmy Butler. Those are the two people most likely to have grudges against me.
Yep. I mean, just think about that. You got Rachel Nichols also let go from ESPN because of your. I believe you guys were sleeping with the same woman. So there's that.
I don't even know what this one's about, but I'll take Eric's word for it. Word for it. We've got a couple of other super chats that have come in here, and then I want to look at the ownership. That should be up in a second, Jacob. So get ready to pull up the ownership because we'll look at that after we answer some super chats here. We got one from Josh Chapman. Josh says, bad matchup for Hornets Clippers, locking them up on defense and maybe a low scoring game. Is there anybody from the Clippers or the Hornets that you're prioritizing for today?
From the Clippers, no.
Or the Hornets, either side.
Not really, no.
I've got a decent amount of Diabate. He's also popular. Although with that said, I right now have him in 25% of my lineup, so I was a little bit underweight to the field. But now that Misi's in the mix, I think I prefer Misi to Diabate. So I'll see when we rerun it here because I'm pretty certain I'm going to lose exposure I have to Diabate. Other than that, let's see. Do I have anybody else who... Nah, nobody else is really important to me. I had Diabate in north of 20% of lineups. He was the only one for me in that game. There's nothing else that's picking up a good amount of portion of my lineups.
I like Nathan Joyce knew what I was talking about and you didn't. That makes me happy.
What did Nathan say?
Oh, just talking about Rachel Nichols. It is what it is. So great times. The bubble was wild, man. The bubble was wild, especially just all the sex being had over there in Mickey Mouse Club. My God.
Just all the players were hooking up with each other.
I have stories. Not for this stream. I got to keep some things under wraps. Now we're starting to get revealed. Our sources cannot get out, Greg. That's important.
From Fresno, I'm not in Twitter. Care to recap? Oh boy, where would I even start with this?
Where do we even start with that? It was
So-
2023. Actually, no, we have to go back to the day of birth when Greg decided to be sarcastic as soon as he came out of the womb. Just was making jokes about his mom looking up at her and just being like, man, might want to get that fixed.
Yeah, I mean, it's been covered in most major publications with me involved as part of the story. But here's essentially what happened. If you're not familiar with the Terry Rozier story, what happened is Terry Rozier has been implicated in the Jonte Porter case. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, something I do pretty regularly is when players leave games early, I will, and if I have a bet on an under, which I have bets on unders for a lot of players, happens pretty regularly, I will, if a player gets ruled out early, like with Anthony Davis a couple of days, and I have an under bet, what I will do is I will find people who complain about the players leaving early, the game being rigged, this, that, and the other, and I will send them the winning screenshot of my bet, and I will troll them in some sort of way. So Terry Rozier has a game from 2 years ago where he leaves early with some sort of ailment. I had him bet for under 6.5 assists. People are complaining about it online. And what I do is I put out a quote tweet of somebody and say, you should have been following the right sources. I knew Terry Rozier was going to be out. And that's more or less what the tweet was there. So now Terry Rozier gets indicted in this thing. This old tweet, people find it. It starts getting circulated everywhere. And now I'm a person of interest in the story, which was fantastic for me online yesterday. There's a lot more involved in it, but that's the spark notes about me taking up the next 30 minutes of the show. Also, if you want to listen to more of it, I did a show with Pat Mayo this morning on his channel, and we talked about the Terry Rozier case a little bit as well. But overall, fantastic day online for me, and I got a lot of hilarious messages. Some of the people I've noticed have trickled into the YouTube chat here by letting me know that they believe that I'm a criminal. We've got Christopher Kendrick says main slate on FanDuel 20% or 25% to first. Let's see, what is it? What's the actual payout of that contest?
I'll pull it up here. Might as well do my fucking job. Oh no, this is just, it's too entertaining. Plus, we need to get all the updates and we'll be ready to rock. It's also been linked to the Tupac murder. That would
so I assume he means the guaranteed overlay contest on FanDuel. Is that fair to say?
I would assume so.
Okay, so there's the guaranteed overlay contest on FanDuel, and that pays out Why will it not let me check? It's not letting me check the payout structure. FanDuel just stinks with some of this stuff. Can you
Honestly, all the money, I've got it right now. It took a second here. So bulk entry, let's just sort this. I mean, honestly, it's just gotten so much worse. I remember when I was playing like 5-6 sites at a time.
I figured it out, by the way. I figured it out.
Which one is it?
All right. So I know why he's asking. It's a $50K contest. It's a $300,000 prize pool, and it pays out $50K to first place. So it's 16% about to first place there. Pick the one that's closest there. So Christopher, select. Well, it actually should be, you should be selecting 15% first. It's assuming that you are talking about the same contest that I'm talking about here. The one that's 300, if it's the $300,000 contest that is $50K to first, if that's the one you mean, then select 15%. You don't have to leave another super chat. If it's a different contest, just throw it into the YouTube chat and I'll answer the question for you. Dustin Stringer wants to know the exotic play of the night with the animation. Jacob, do you have that handy by chance?
God damn it.
Going to financially recover from this.
We're going to let it go all the way to the end.
People asked, and we are going to deliver. Who's the exotic play of the night today?
Man, there are very few times in a man's life where the exotic makes this much sense, or the exotic is this clear cut, where it's this easy for me to click on. What?
Nothing. I was just laughing at what you were saying.
Oh, thank you. Most people do. I'm funny.
Yeah, you said it's very rare that the exotic player of the night is this obvious to you, and that just made me laugh.
Yeah, because there's like one guy that you can really play that I think makes all the sense in all the land, and it is the one, the only Joker, Nikola Jokic. I just don't see how it's anybody else.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to identify anybody else. You know, Jakob Poeltl is pulling some ownership at $6,600. You've got Kristaps Porzingis at $7K. I think that he's somebody else who you could potentially look at here, but none of them are real priorities for me. So I'm going to agree with you just by default, Eric. It's going to be Jokic for me. I went overweight to the field on him when we did the show together. I'm pretty sure this was Wednesday, the Jokic slate, where he got into foul trouble 2 minutes into the game, and then Mike Malone just didn't play him for like the rest of the half. So that was a pretty annoying slate. And I do wonder if that's one of the reasons that Jokic's ownership is a little bit lower again today. But pretty much any time that Jokic isn't pulling significant ownership, he's somebody I'm going to want to be overweight to in my player pool. Like, we know the kind of upside that he has. This is a slate that has enough value to where we're not completely hurting to be able to pay up. So I'm with you, Nikola Jokic, and it is pretty hard to identify anybody else.
Mike Malone is a fake sharp. Mike Malone, I mean, fake sharp. Like, keep playing your guy, because now you put yourself behind the 8 ball and you lost the game anyway. You play to win the game. Duh.
That's what you do. But that's not what he did that other day. And then also, as where was it? I just saw somebody bring it up in chat that he finished with, it was Rich.
20 points.
Rich said, and he only finished with 3 fouls. Yeah, super, super annoying. He picked up 2 fouls in the first half, basically doesn't play again until the end of the second quarter. Third quarter, he picked up 1 foul, like kind of early on a ticky-tack foul, and that was it. And then also Denver ends up losing that game. I think, would they have had a better chance of winning if Nikola Jokic played his normal minutes? Yeah, probably. Probably. Instead, what you do when you take somebody out for foul trouble, you're basically making the decision to foul them out yourself.
Everybody wants the nuke now. Is that just because I haven't missed on a nuke since last Friday? Like, legitimately, every nuke I've thrown out. Yesterday, Rob Dillingham, 8% in the main. Absolute nuke-tastic. Better than 10x for the people. Little 33 spot. That felt good in your blender. But yeah, last Friday just started this trend. Greg, we have been absolutely goated with these nuke of the nights lately.
All right. So Eric is nuking his nukes.
Well, I got
so
another one.
Are we going to go back-to-back animations? You don't even want to put a break into it? We're just running another one?
So love.
There we have it. Eric's got to be cooking up something good here because he was very excited to give out his nuke of the night. So, Eric, what does he have in mind over there?
Yeah, we've got a lot of different options. And I already talked about how much Paul Reed I'm going to be firing up in my life. There's just no way on planet Earth that I wasn't going to just play a ton of Paul Reed on today's slate coming into it. Kind of accepted that about the way I was going to go out and construct. But let's think about things here a little bit because I think we've got some really popular pieces that are starting to come up to the top. And Jeremiah Robinson, 65% optimal in our last run? Good Lord, just got that updated number. But I don't know who else we could potentially get to here that would be a better option as far as just like trying to get away from the entire field and just embrace the variance and whatever comes with it than the one, than the only Miles Bridges. I hate this matchup for him going up against the Clippers. I absolutely hate it. But I thought he was going to end up being like kind of popular-ish on today's slate. He's in this very first window of games here. They're taking on a Clippers team that with Kawhi on the floor has been the best defense in the entire NBA. They were already good. They're second in defensive rating even before he ended up joining this team. But I thought he'd end up being like 10, 12%. No, Miles Bridges is 3%. Do you know his rates when you take all of these goobers, Ball, Williams, Miller, and Martin off the floor? Let me tell you, they're absurd. 152 minutes, 34.6% usage, 22% assist rate, nearly 18% total rebound percentage. 3%, 4% Miles Bridges? That's way too low of a number if you ask me. He's the only one out there who can do anything. Keep this game even remotely competitive. 8,500. I know it's going to keep everybody away, so I'll play 25% of him here at 3-4%. I think that's one way to just get completely different exposure. He got there in 32 minutes against Brooklyn in a game that they only scored like 84 points. You give him 38 minutes here potentially and keep this semi-competitive, which is still a big if. They're 14-point dogs at home against, the Clippers, who have been incredible. Give me all the Miles Bridges and all the land.
All right. Eric going with Miles Bridges. By the way, some confirmation here. Al Horford, he is available to play. Sam Hauser, he is also available to play today. So we've got them officially confirmed. And it was expected, but it's good to know. So for me, boy, there's a couple of guys that I'm potentially considering here. All right, here's somebody I'm overweight to that's pulling some low ownership tonight, Eric. Asar Thompson, who we currently have projected for 9% ownership in our last run. I know everybody is into Amen Thompson right now, who's clearly been the better of the twin brothers, but Asar Thompson still is somebody who has a lot of upside, especially in the defensive stat department. So typically will look a little bit better on FanDuel than it does on DraftKings. His minutes have completely tanked the last couple of games, but those games were also not competitive at all. So if you look at the last couple of games, 20 minutes against the Pacers, but they lost by double digits, and he got in some foul trouble that game. The game against the Cavs, he only played 20 minutes, but they also lost that game by, 19 points. The game before that, in a more competitive game against Orlando, he played 30 minutes. And he's a pretty good fantasy producer as well. So at $4,500, I think Asar Thompson is somebody who's going a little bit overlooked by the field. It's single-digit ownership. Not necessarily as somebody who I'm going to be playing like 50% of or anything like that, but I am more than double the field right now.
Yeah, there's a world where he gets finally some of that extra run. Again, he's not going to take over in like a small ball lineup, especially considering Gafford on the other side of things. I mean, just doesn't really make sense for them to try to like go small ball or try to force him off the floor in any way. Like Gafford's going to get his, I think, in this one. I like Gafford as a tournament option too, but I think my favorite part is that nobody likes either of our Nuke of the Nights here, it would appear. Those are the best ones. I don't know if people have been paying attention. Greg's thrown out some like sub 1% Nuke of the Night love here of late, and pretty much everything across the board for a week has come up roses. Let's keep that going today. Again, I didn't think I was going to like Miles Bridges, but I like him at 3-4%. This is a ownership and projection game, so there's that.
I'm also pretty surprised that Misi didn't really pick up any additional owner. Misi's only 7% owned.
That's
so
wild.
I don't kind of, this is why I was trying to figure out who is I want to pick, because there's a lot of guys that I'm updating my lineups right now, but there's a lot of players who are projected for like 5 to 9% ownership that I'm close to 20% off. 20% on. I was trying to figure out which one it was that I kind of wanted to call out, but Misi's another one who I just think is being underrepresented by the field, considering that there's no Zion, there's opportunity for him to play more, and this last ownership update didn't really move him all that much.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to get to a little bit here at this point in time. Again, he's just not a good offensive polished player. Like Misi's been pretty brutal on that side of the floor in his rookie season. I've been watching a lot more New Orleans basketball than I'm proud of. I mean, part of that is just like the next wave of games. I'm usually doing not live before. Like I'm usually doing Lindy stuff after this show with Jacob, not on Fridays, which is nice. We'll be able to go live our lives and do something with it. But I kind of look at Misi as like a really, like he's almost like a worse offensive version than Thomas Brown. Like he'll actually go out and shoot a couple of threes from like he's not good at it. He won't shoot them right now, but like going back to his college years at Baylor, I think we'll see him eventually find a way to be somewhat competent on the offensive end. But like I'm more disturbed by the fact that he's like a first percentile estimated plus minus defensive guy on dunks and threes. I think, obviously the interior there, you're going to go out on Kristaps Porzingis, who's going to be roaming around, but yeah, I guess I'm going to have to play a little bit of this idiot. Rip to us.
If you wouldn't mind, Jacob, can you pull the ownership back up here? We'll look at where it's standing with 13 minutes to go and answer the final questions that are in here. Also, if you guys do want to sign up for Portfolio EV, we got our 7-day free trial going on. So if you guys are looking for some bets to buoy your bankroll, we've seen lots of Stokastic subs say that they have been able to build up their bankroll by using Portfolio EV and then using that to go and enter some cash games. Somebody had left Lofty and I a super chat the other day that they signed up for Portfolio EV, made a bunch of money doing that, used that to sign up for the NBA Sims, and they won an NBA GPP the other day. So it's a really good way to help build up your bankroll, especially because there's a lot of variance in NBA GPPs. There's a lot of variance in all GPPs. So it's like a new version of cash games, doing some player prop betting using the tools. Let's look at this. Let's look at the ownership now. Most popular players on the slate. We now have Giannis at 45% owned. We've got Jeremiah Robinson Earl at 40% owned. Kobe White at 38% owned. And then Aaron Gordon at 35.5%. For a small slate, it's kind of spread out, the ownership, Eric. We'll usually see it a little bit more concentrated. Do you have any issues with the ownership going to any of these four guys? Either somebody who you think should be even more popular or maybe somebody you don't like quite as much as the field?
No, but I want to just throw this out to you. Bobby Portis, when he's off the floor, Giannis is a 34% usage. He's right around 35% usage guy, right around a 30% assist rate and 20% rebound rate. Do you know what his triple double is at Bet365 today?
Tell me, let me know.
Plus 1,000. That's a really good bet. Like, that's a really good bet. I've got this like true odds closer to plus 700 and like plus 1,000. I mean, it's got a 5.5 assist prop. His rebound prop's at 13.5. What am I missing? Why are we able to get this at plus 1,000 today?
It's a good question. It's a good question. I'm going to agree with you. I think that looks pretty good as a long shot option there. What is it at some other books?
It was plus 900 when I was putting together my thread last night. That's what I put into my thread. And I basically just put a small amount on it last night late because I was like, well, I just want to have something there in case the line ends up moving in some weird way. But I had a pretty good inkling. I mean, Bet365's had some really good odds on these triple doubles on, more unlikely candidates than aren't Nikola Jokic of late. My God, I did not expect getting plus 1,000. So I ended up putting a nice little bit of penny on that one. I think that's probably like your best EV bet of the day, aside from anything in Portfolio EV, which I'm obviously tailing.
I like it. I dig it. I think that's a good upside GPP sort of play as a bet there. Some super chats here that have come in as well. We have a bunch of them actually came in here. Paul, we've got Paul Akizi saying he plays 5th in the FanDuel main GPP yesterday, or main FanDuel. I assume he meant GPP. Thanks for everything you guys do. Who are the best plays on FanDuel tonight? Overall, Eric, who do you think looks best on FanDuel? You have lineups built out there? If not, I could answer.
Yeah, I did build some out because we were looking at the overlay contest. I didn't get in that, unfortunately, but I entered some low dollar stuff to build out some lineups.
All right, so let's go back and forth. We'll go position by position. I'll say who I'm getting to the most at the position. Then I'll go back to you. Point guard for me, Kobe White.
Kobe White.
Yeah, pretty easy one there. It's Kobe White as well at shooting guard. So, I'll change point guard to Tyrese Maxey so I could use Kobe White at shooting guard.
I would assume no.
Okay. At small forward, guy I mentioned before, Asar Thompson.
Jason Tatum.
At power forward, Aaron Gordon.
Miles Bridges.
And then at center, a $3,600 Paul Reed.
It is Paul Reed by a mile.
Yeah, he's popular, but not like insanely popular on FanDuel.
Just such a better fantasy performer than a Jeremiah Robinson Earl. Like, it's not even remotely close. If you're going to punt at center and you don't play Paul Reed instead, you're doing a mistake, I think.
Got a super chat from our guy, Sean Jeezy. Sean says he finished 2nd in the live final qualifier last night. The absolute worst thing that could ever happen to anybody in the history of the world.
Had that happen.
Still feels sick about it. Wants to know, who is our favorite? Oh, this is a very specific number. Who is our favorite center under 12% owned tonight?
Back in the Seahawks days, I lost 2, not 1, but 2 FanDuel seats on Russell Wilson knees at the end of a game.
Oof. That's
both.
No good.
I entered, it was a split like $5 queue, and I put the same lineup into both, and both got knocked down by the same lineup in both of those. So I have been there. It is the worst feeling in the world. I cannot tell you how bad I feel for you. Again, hope you enjoy your $400. Let's see.
Misi's my answer to his question.
What was that?
Favorite center, sub 12% owned. So
sub 12% owned. Probably Misi on DraftKings now. I mean, I didn't see him being this low owned. Other one's Zubats. Zubats could just go up against Charlotte and put up 28 rebounds, and it wouldn't shock me.
Chris Albers wants to know our favorite chalk and GPP plays for each position. Give me like a second here because I'm just running one final. What was that? Sorry.
Yeah, I need 2 minutes too. I'm just finishing everything up.
Yeah. Let me finish one. I've got like one final Sims run coming on, then we'll circle back to that question. Ryan Rennebaum wants to know, can we have a 2-minute monologue insulting Eric? Why would no, it's impossible to keep it only 2 minutes. So that's the only reason I can. I just, there's no way I could do it in under 2 minutes. It seems like a near impossible task. Dexter Mackey wants me to wear an orange jumpsuit for the people next week. All right.
I thought you were going to do it today, honestly. There was a part of me, because like you've had that stupid fucking hat forever that you'll put on from time to time that just makes me want to vomit. It's usually like baseball season. Greg gets a little loopy around June, and he's like, look at this. I'm wearing this funny hat. And I'm like, truly, get me out of here. But legitimately, you haven't worn that in a while either. So, I mean, who are you even? Who are you actually? Do I even know you anymore?
I lost that. I lost the Indiana Jones hat, unfortunately. I have no clue where it is. It wasn't it was the Indiana Jones hat, but it was also a cowboy hat. It had many different iterations. The real funny way to do this, per Dexter's question, is if Eric dressed up as a jailer and I showed up as an inmate.
I was thinking about doing like I shaved today. I was going to do like the little porn stash thing from Orange is the New Black. And I have the exact, because I did that with a Halloween costume with an ex-girlfriend back in the day. Like, I don't know, when was that show popular? 2013, 2014. I had the best mustache going with that thing. It was a really good Halloween outfit, but thought about wearing it, opted out, but you're not wearing orange, and that was disappointing.
Yeah, instead I'm wearing a SpongeBob shirt today, which
That's
you know,
pretty chill.
as a grown
one
adult
does.
does when he shows up to his
Yeah.
place of work, he wears SpongeBob
Yep.
shirts.
Yep. Interviewed by ESPN wearing SpongeBob shirts. That's good.
Josh Chapman, he says Harrison Barnes is the nuke. Okay. He's going with Harrison Barnes. He's given his own nuke pick in there. Chris Williams gifted out 5 YouTube
Had to
memberships.
guard him in
Chris,
real life.
what was that?
Oh, I just Harrison Barnes. I had to guard him in real life when I was at Iowa State. He played for Ames High School, Ames, Iowa High School. It was him and Doug McDermott on the same high school team. When I was 19, they were like 15-year-olds coming into the gym and just murdering us. It was the dumbest thing ever. But yeah, I've had to guard Harrison Barnes. Don't recommend it.
I don't have exposure to him today, so not a guy I would be going with as my nuke pick, but shout out to Josh for giving his input there on his nuke. We'll go into Discord now and see what final questions we have from some of the subs in Discord. And once again, if you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel. 5 minutes, this show is going to end, but we're going to keep it going over in playback, Josh and myself, and we're waiting on some starting lineups. It's definitely something that could end up influencing the slate, in particular, who ends up starting in the absence of Zion Williamson. Jeremiah Robinson Earl, really popular tonight. Will he start? Will he not start? We'll find out in a little bit over on playback. Question here is from Sniffs1234. Wants to know, how do we feel about Zubats against the Charlotte Hornets? I know Eric said that he likes him as a GPP play. Center's a little bit too congested for me. I have other contrarian options that I like more than Zubats. If I'm going to be going with a really low-owned guy, I said I like Misi. Eric said that he had some interest in Zubats earlier. We also had that super chat from, now that my Sims are done running, Chris Albers, favorite chalk and favorite GPP plays at each position. Yeah, let's do it. At point guard for me, favorite chalk option is Kobe White. Favorite contrarian option, DeJounte Murray.
Yeah, Kobe White. Favorite at point guard or Lonzo Ball. I kind of have around the same amount of both of them. Tyrese Maxey, 20%. Is that kind of the cutoff or whatever? DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray. Yeah.
Sub 20%. We'll do it for this.
Awesome.
Shooting guard, chalk. I'll say Brandon Boston. Favorite contrarian option for me, Devin Vassell.
I like the Devin Vassell one. The Sims really like him as well, so I don't mind that shout out. I'll go Trey Murphy contrarian.
Small forward. I mean, Brandon Boston's the only real popular guy at the position. Already mentioned it before, so kind of drawing dead for other names to bring up. Contrarian option, Asar Thompson.
I'll go. Just kind of going between them. Brandon Boston. I mean, he's sub 30. That's wrong. I can't do that. Trey Murphy again.
Power forward, my favorite chalk option is Aaron Gordon. Favorite contrarian option is Jason Tatum.
Aaron Gordon, Javonte Green, and Jeremiah Robinson Earl, whichever one starts.
Okay. And then at center for me, chalk option, Paul Reed. Contrarian option is Wemby.
Yeah, I have so much Paul Reed, man. He's my highest owned player on the entire slate. And favorite contrarian center. I mean, I had brought up Nuke, Miles Bridges at power forward. I forgot to throw him into the mix as well, so I apologize. Let's run it out with, I will go Zubats. I've got 13% Zubats. That's fine.
Larson, top pay up over 10K on FanDuel. That is Giannis for me. Cream wants to know who our favorite point guard is. I believe that was Kobe White for both Eric and myself, correct?
Correct.
COVID Bryant II wants to know, can he play Kawhi Leonard today? Yes, you can. I'm not rostering.
Do you want to? I'm going to say no. He's been awesome, though, man. It's just good to see that.
A super chat real quick here because we're running out of time. Alex Morris left this in just a second ago. Thoughts on Alvarado today for a cheap GPP option? I don't hate it. He's not a priority. Like, I have him in lineups, but I don't have a ton of him.
I have 2%. Not a priority. Thought about him very long and hard. Did not end up pulling the trigger on much.
Minutes haven't really been there. He's a decent enough pointsman and fantasy producer relative to his price, but there just isn't really adequate playing time there. Grizzly wants to know, are we boosting anybody? No, not for me. With nobody on the injury report, I'm just playing everything as I get to it. And then he wants to know how much Jeremiah Robinson Earl do I have? I have Jeremiah Robinson Earl in a third of my lineups right now.
Love.
And then we've got Ethan7 wants to know, what do we make of Scotty Barnes as a GPP option? With quickly playing, that's a no for me. It's just somebody else to take the ball out of his hands. For myself, if I'm going to be contrarian and spend up and get off of Giannis, I prefer to pivot to Jokic or to pivot to Wemby or Tatum. But Barnes, not a priority contrarian spend up. Do you have a contrarian spend up you're liking?
Not really like the Cade and Halliburton spot last time. I am just going through my ownership here right now. Tyrese Maxey a little bit, but he's not really contrarian. He's 22%. So I like Tyrese Maxey a number 38%.
Boy, getting put on the spot here. CG asked me right before we get to lock, do I have any insider info tonight for the bets? I'll tell you what's at the top of OddsShopper right now.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been doing my due diligence on inside information, but let's see. Top of the board on OddsShopper, and I know CG is a regular user of the data
Stafford
and
over
tools
15
that
and
we
a half
have.
points for me.
I see Royce O'Neal under 15.5 PRA. I don't mind that. I think that's one to go with. Jeremiah, Royce O'Neal under 15.5 PRA. We've got Keldon Johnson under 1.5 threes. But I don't have any crazy insider tidbits for tonight. Any final thoughts for the people, Eric, before Josh and I head on over to playback?
Yeah, Daniel Gafford is about to just destroy Duran and Paul Reed, but also go Paul Reed because DFS exists.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Come join Josh and I over on Playback. We still have a bunch of news that we are waiting for. So I think it could be good, informative time for you guys. We're going to go hang out. We'll see what the updated ownership looks like. We'll go over some live ownership and then any kind of news items that break along the way. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. Jacob, if you wouldn't mind, could you drop that Playback link into the YouTube chat? And see you guys over on the other side. Eric, have a good weekend. I'm sure we'll be
You
texting.
too, my dude. Yep, stay out of jail.